Working on my 2003 Honda Civic today. The issue I'm having is the radiator fan isn't working. As you can see, that fan there is not turning, while this fan over here is turning. Try to figure this out. The whole point of this video is to show you how to do this as quickly as possible with removing the least amount of parts to get that old radiator fan and to put the new one in. Here's the new one right here. It's Rapid Cool. It's made by Hayden. It's a universal. I'm assuming that this guy fits. I hope it does anyhow. These are the parts that come with the Hayden. They zip ties to put these things in. Maybe I'll use them, maybe I won't. We'll see. I've already tested this fan with my multimeter. I've switched it on to the ohm setting. I've connected the two wires here to the end. This particular guy doesn't come with a with an attachment at the end. I'm going to have to reuse the old plug and solder it on to this. I've tested the fan right here with my ohm meter, and this one is completely dead. Keep in mind that on this new fan that this is polarized, meaning that if you connect one wire to the positive and the other wire to the negative, the fan is going to spin in a certain direction. If you switch the wires, then the fan will spin in another direction. You want to make sure your fan is turning towards the engine. Up, and it came undone from the bottom screw, so it must just sit inside of something. I haven't figured that out yet, but it's loose. The next thing I got to do here, there it is right there in the center of the screen. That's one of the transmission lines, and it's held in by that plastic snap clip. So I'm going to put my pliers on that, and hopefully it'll come loose. I also need to remove this upper radiator hose, so I think I should drain the radiator. I'm going to drain it out into this container. That way when I take this apart, I won't get radiator fluid all over the place. I'm going to do that now. It was actually really easy to open it up. It's a plastic wing nut. You just undo it a couple of times, and it's in this corner of the vehicle. And to make it flow a little bit better, I'm opening up the lid here. Of course, you want to make sure that your engine is cold before you open this up. I've drained out most of the fluid. I don't think I need to drain out all of it, because for now I just need to remove this hose. Get this hose out. I'm going to try to unbuckle this section, but I'm worried that I'm going to need to unbuckle this guy here as well, and I think I need to remove this panel to get it out. It's really easy to get these guys out. You just pry them up with a flathead screwdriver. We'll soon find out what I need to do. That was ridiculously easy to get out. So I got the fan out, and all I had to do was remove the battery. I didn't have to remove the metal piece under the battery, just the battery had to come out. The front panel here, I didn't have to remove it. All I had to do was get this out, and I managed to slide this thing right out, which is amazing, because I've owned Honda Civics before in the past, and every time I've had to change one of these fans, it's been hard. I've had to go under the car and remove the plastic engine shield under the vehicle to get that thing out. Another development in this install is this fan does not work. The guys who sold it to me should stop selling these fans to people with 03 Honda Civics. Look at the difference in these two fans. The size, the connector up here, there's nowhere to connect up here. This this little bracket right here is really important because that's where the overflow attaches. So I've just spent the last 45 minutes going to the store, and lucky I live in the city and these things are widely available, and it's lucky that I own a Honda Civic. It's the best-selling car in Canada, so it's easy to get these parts. Now I'm going to try to get it back in and see how it goes. Time to start putting the new fan in. I should mention that this new fan, just like the original, has these little nubby things at the bottom. So it's excellent. They just slide right in. As I'm installing it, I just got to make sure that it sits in the proper place. And it should be as easy to put it in as it was to take this thing out. I am having difficulty getting that transmission line clipped back into place. So what I did was I removed the clip here around the tube, and I'm going to get this into the metal piece first because I can't get it in with the hose on it, and then I'll put the hose in and I'll close this onto the hose. I've been at this clip for the last 5-10 minutes, and I think this is the only way to put it back on properly. Okay, I'm still having a really tough time with this transmission line. So what I've done is I removed this screw, and I wish I would have did this at the very beginning. If I just would have pulled this screw out, I would not have had to remove the transmission line from this plastic clip. I could have just left the clip plugged in with the hose in it. I could have taken the screw out and just moved this entire piece away from the radiator with the hose on it. So what I'm going to do, now that I've got this clip out, I'm going to plug this thing in. Now that I have it out, I'm going to wrap it around the hose, and then the last thing I'm going to do is take the screw and put it back in, and that's how I'm going to get this transmission hose secured again. So far this is the only hard part of the job. Okay, I got the plastic piece back into the bracket. I had to use my vice grip to get it in. I had to put my pliers in behind it so that when I close the vice grip, the plastic piece could go in between the two heads of the pliers. That was the only way to get this thing in. If you don't have a vice grip, you're going to have a hard time putting this thing in. Maybe I spoke too soon and said that this job was easy. Okay, as you can see, I managed to break the clip. But what I'm going to use is a zip tie, and I'm going to wrap it around, and this portion of the clip is going to give me some teeth so that when I do tie the zip tie on, it'll have something to bite onto, and it should hold it very sturdy. I've got some really good zip ties. Well, the screw that I'm referring to is right here, and when you do this job, if you can just take this screw out and leave this plastic connected, you might be able to pull this job off without breaking it like I did. Okay, it looks like this job was a success. The radiator fan is in place and it works. Whenever I replace antifreeze coolant, I always use this stuff. In my experience, whenever I put Prestone or some of those aftermarket type fluids, I always blow a hose afterwards, that stuff that you mix. When it comes to checking the overflow tank level, it's really difficult in this Honda Civic. You just can't see it down there. What I do, I got a little trick here I'm going to show you guys. I keep some wire right here attached to my my battery, and I'm just going to straighten out the wire, and I'll show you what I do. I've got my wire all straightened up. I've got the lid off, the cap off the overflow reservoir, there's my wire on the ground all straight. I'm gonna just pick it up, and what I do here is I use the wire and I use it as a dipstick, and I just let it go all the way down till the bottom's out, and then when I lift it up, I can see at the very bottom it's wet, so that means my overflow tank is a little bit low, and I'm gonna add some radiator fluid to it. I got my wire back in place. This is where I keep it. For those of you who don't know, there's a valve on this cap, and there's a little tube right here that shoots water into the overflow tank when the engine gets hot. When the engine gets cold, water in the overflow tank gets sucked back into the radiator system. That's why it's so important to have this thing, you know, with some radiator fluid in it. If you when you remove these bottles and look at the bottom portion, there's a minimum level and a maximum level, so the levels fluctuate in the tank. You want to make sure that there's some fluid in here, and you want to make sure that you replace this cap every once in a while to make sure that the valve is working. It's an important part of keeping your engine cool in the summer. Over here are the tools that I used. I got my drain pan, got a light, and amazingly, I did this entire job with a 10mm long socket and a 10mm short socket. I used these pliers to pull the hoses on and off, and I used the cutters to cut the zip tie. Unfortunately, I had to zip tie that transmission hose into place, but it's holding very well, and I'm confident that it's going to be fine, and hopefully this radiator fan's gonna last me a while.